All right. We are live today with Monday Reactions, the BS3 Sports Show. Of course, our normal host, Ben Surf, is not here, so you have your guest host, Tyon Mack and Courtney Harden. So how you doing today, man?
I'm good, Tyon. Getting ready for this football season, man. I mean, I'm glad that we got to at least get something going with this, the NFL getting ready to start, and I'm excited about that. How's your Labor Day, man?
Oh, man, the Labor Day has been going really well. You know, we having a heat wave right now. So the Bay Area got a massive heat wave. And to tell you how bad it is, yesterday I was sitting in 113-degree heat, right?
Jeez.
Everything was melting. Everything.
It was hot here too in Philly, man. It was hot yesterday. Today, me and my wife went out. We went to the park. We social distance from a lot of people. Just went to a small park and just chilled, man. Had some fruit, and it was nice though. It was like low 80s yesterday, today, so it was good.
Ooh, see, that's. Yeah. I mean, I opened my garage and I thought the devil was trying to come in. I was like, nah, brother, stay out there.
Right.
Stay here. You know what I'm saying? I don't like you today, man. Just stay out there, brother. So, we have a unique situation this year because, we're starting the football season. We're just starting the football season right now, and we still have the playoffs going in the NBA, right? So it's like crazy. We kind of get an overload of sports. And like I said, we're in the middle of the playoffs. But We're going to kind of pivot today away from the playoffs because next week, opening week, football is back. We are going to look at our top 5 offensive players. So we're going to look at our top 5 offensive players in each position. So we're going to look at the quarterback position. We're going to look at the running back position. We'll look at the wide receiver position and the tight end position today. All right. So, and I'm sure Courtney's probably ready. It took me a lot of time. I was sitting down. I was going through my brain. I was going through like stats, everything, right? And I was like, who is my top 5 at each position? Let's talk about each position first. Let's talk about the position first before we introduce our players, and then just figure out what our criteria is for that position. So, looking at the quarterback position, what is your criteria for a top quarterback in the league? And then once you break that down, go ahead and give us your top 5.
Yep, I definitely will, man. Yeah, I'm excited. I know I put this out there with the NFL season starting Thursday, actually, with Kansas City, the Super Bowl champions. They go up against Houston Texans this week. Yep. So yes, KC and Houston this week. You got 2 elite quarterbacks at that position, for those 2 teams. So they just got paid. You got a couple of those guys just got paid. You got Patrick Mahomes, Desean Watson. So to me, an elite quarterback is a guy that any given day, any given Sunday, they have the best chance to win. Like, you have the best chance to win with that guy. Regardless of if they have a lead or if they're behind, I should say, and if they, if they're behind like 13 points or if they're behind 20 points or behind 25 points, he's a guy that can take them on his back, the team on his back, and lead them to a victory. We saw that with Patrick Mahomes last year, all through the playoffs last season. He did it. So to me, that's one criteria. Another one is, you got to have the numbers. You got to be able to put up those huge stats on a winning team too. I think that's another it's another criteria, another point that you have to be an elite quarterback. And like I said, no matter the circumstances, you just win. You win at no other option. You just go out there, you ball out. Even when you're having a bad game, you find a way to win. It's like that clutch gene that you have to have, like in basketball. Even if you're shooting over 10 or over 15, you might hit that one shot because everybody knows, okay, this person still can get hot at the, in the fourth quarter and hit that last shot to win the game. So that's, you make plays. So I think that's my criteria. So let me I'll go right to my my list, top 5 quarterbacks right now. I'll start from 5. Number 5 on my list is Aaron Rodgers.
Ooh,
he is number 5. To me, he's still elite. I mean, this guy's. It's funny how we all think, okay, he's had a down year. Yeah, he doesn't have the same he's not the same guy. I mean, he's 36 years old, and he was playing with a new offense last season, and also we forget that he had new coaching. He had new coach, new offensive system, and he had one legit receiver, Devante Adams. And Aaron Rodgers still led this team to the NFC Championship. Yeah, they got blown out by the Niners, but the Niners went to the Super Bowl. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, that's nothing to be upset about. I mean, it's upsetting they lost, but it's another thing. To see it, the way Aaron Rodgers still puts up the numbers. Let's just say that he still puts a number. He's still elite. He's still one of that. He's a bad man, like a bad man, just like Stephen A. Smith says. So, and he still put up a number. He had 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He still threw for 4,000 yards, 62% completion percentage. Yes, it's not your typical Aaron Rodgers season, but I'll take that for my elite quarterback. 26 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. I'll take that any day. So, yeah, that bad man himself with a new offense. We'll see what he's going to – I think he's going to do very well this upcoming season too. So now that he has Jordan Love got drafted in the first round, so he's going to be playing lights out. So I got Aaron Rodgers number 5. Number 4, we just talked about him, Desean Watson. Just got paid over the weekend. So this guy – just like Dabo Swinney said, his former coach, he said that over in Clemson, he said, this guy is the Michael Jordan, of football. He just makes plays. He gets it done. He just has that knack. He has that ability to rise to the occasion. And he led a team. They only had not too many offensive weapons, DeAndre Hopkins. So now we get to really see Deshaun Watson have to make plays. Now Hopkins is out. They traded him for – David Johnson, what's left of David Johnson. So I got to go with Deshaun Watson. They was in the playoffs. They had Kansas City on the ropes last year in the second round. They should have won. They was up 24-0. And so I got to go with Deshaun Watson as my number 4 quarterback. Like I said, he puts up numbers as well. 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Doesn't have much of a team around him. Offensive line is suspect. But he continues to produce. They made, like I said, they made the playoffs last year, and who knows? They maybe could have went to the Super Bowl if they would have beat Kansas City, and maybe they beat Tennessee in the AFC Championship. So I got Deshaun Watson at number 4. Number 3, Lamar Jackson, another young player who just the MVP. Lamar Jackson, 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He was just a one-man machine last year. Proved that he could play quarterback. He's a bad man. The speed, the mechanics are always not there, but the guy won. He won 13 games last year. You got to give it to Lamar Jackson. He put up huge numbers, proved that he belongs in the league. Like I said, he was the MVP. And he ran for 1,200 yards. So that's the thing. He's dangerous with his legs and his arm. And once he improves his accuracy a little bit more, and he starts figuring out, okay, I need to ratchet up. I need to up my game up in the playoffs too. Once he gets that, I mean, he's becoming elite. So he's my number 3. So Lamar Jackson, the MVP of last season, is my number 3. Number 2, we talked about this guy weeks ago, but Russell Wilson is my number 2. This guy just continues to put up numbers, with really hardly any weapons, really. I mean, all the years that Russell Wilson has played, it's always been something else. It's not despite what he does. He makes plays with his legs and his arm. Even when like I talked about earlier, if he's down, you could never count him out because he always has the ability to carry a team, carry them to a win. He did it last year. He's done it all throughout his career. So even when they won the Super Bowl years ago, they had, it was Legion of Boom. It was Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, but it was never Russell Wilson for some reason. And some reason he gets disrespected too. I don't know why, but this guy is elite, strong, probably one of the strongest arms in the NFL. Puts up numbers again last year, 31 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and he was in the MVP discussion. If it wasn't for Lamar Jackson having a career year last year, Russell Wilson probably wins MVP. So he always got Seattle in the mix. They got to the NFC divisional round. They beat my Eagles in the first round. And then they got to the second round. They lost to Green Bay, which they could have won. So I give it to Russell Wilson. And number one, which is probably your number one, and everybody else number one, probably to me the best player in football, Patrick Mahomes. That's a bad man. Man. Just got paid. They got their rings. He's ready for more championships. He was MVP 2 years ago, Super Bowl MVP last year, and like the comebacks was so tremendous. They were down in all three games the two games in the playoffs in the AFC Championship in the game before that, and Mahomes just continued to put up numbers, continued to make plays out of the pocket, make plays in the pocket. The way he throws the football, he's like Aaron Rodgers in his heyday. Sidearm, the flick of the wrist, the strong arm, and the weapons. I mean, this guy's got so many weapons too. Travis Kelsey and the running backs. I mean, he's just got elite talent at all positions, but he's elite too. So got to give it to Patrick Mahomes, and he's the highest paid player in the history of sports itself. So Patrick Mahomes. So those are my top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL today.
All right, good, man. I mean, that's a tough list, man. What's really funny about this is I have the same 5.
Okay.
I have the same 5. Now, there's some quarters that are a little bit different, but I have the same 5. So, starting with number 5, I had A-Rod, AR-12. You know what I'm saying? Come back from injury. Pointed out 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 4,000 yards. But man, this dude can still, first year in the new offense, he can still do everything, right? He can still roll out. I mean, precision passing. I mean, this dude puts it on a rope. He puts it where the receiver can catch it. And you could give him almost any receiver. I mean, I don't care who you give him. If you can catch the ball, he can get you the ball, period.
Right.
It don't matter if your route is ran great, if you run bad routes, if you double cut, he gets you the ball. So that dude, I mean, he still sets the standard for the most part for how a quarterback should play the game.
Yes.
Sits in a pocket, always looking to throw the ball, but is always a threat because of his athleticism, his ability to run. And he will run the ball if he needs to. So he's not my number 5. My number 4 happens to be Russell Wilson. Now, you had him at number 2. I probably should have him higher, and he probably, but as you stated, there's just something that that whole disrespect, it's just something that's missing with Russell. I don't know what it is. Yeah. Right? Because he plays the game well. He has weapons, he doesn't have elite weapons, but he does have weapons, DK Metcalf had a really good season. He had Tyler Lockett. Before then, he had Golden Tate. But he's had some really good receivers, some really solid receivers. And he always gives you good production. He's another guy. He can take off and run. He can make the deep ball. He's really good in the play action. I mean, just a good quarterback, just a solid quarterback. And you always know that you're in the game when you have him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So he's one of those players, if you need him to make a play, he makes that play, right? You can give him the ball and say, hey, march down the field. Unfortunately, I think since that Super Bowl, we haven't really, he hasn't had that opportunity per se.
Yeah.
They put the ball in his hands that Super Bowl, and they lost, right? And so I think that weighs on a lot of people's mind, too, that was like, hey, you pointed out, get the ball to beast mode. Should have gave the ball to beast mode. But that was supposed to be like that change in the guard moment, I think, where he was supposed to show that, like, hey, he was that QB, and it didn't happen for him. And so that's probably why I got him at 4. Even though, like I said, he could be number 2. I mean, honestly, he could be number 1. But you can probably switch him around. Number 3, I got the MVP of the league this past season, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has developed more into a quarterback. He still has a ways to go. I think he still has some issues with his accuracy. But that offense that they have created around him is perfect for his ability. It gives him the read option, right? He can always pass or run at any play. He utilized as a young quarterback. Your best friend is always the tight end. He utilized both of those tight ends, right? Hayden Hurst and Mark Andrews. He utilized both of them. Hayden Hurst ended up getting paid and going to Atlanta.
Yeah.
You got Lamar Jackson to thank for that, brother.
Yes, you got paid, man.
You got paid.
Yes.
But a guy who doesn't make, like I said, doesn't make many mistakes. Very, very control with the ball. He's a good passer. He's not a great passer, but he's a good passer. I like to see them get some more weapons. He had Hollywood Brown this year. Hollywood Brown is still developing as a receiver, as a route runner. He's really, really fast, but he needs to develop as a route runner. And let's see what he gets with some more weapons, see if that unlocks all of his ability. But I got him at number 3. He had an amazing season, set records at the quarterback position. Sadly, he got destroyed by Tennessee, but great season. Number two, my boy who just got paid 4 years, $160 million extension.
Yep.
With $111 million guaranteed. $111 million guaranteed. $40 million a year. Desean Watson.
Yes.
And you got paid. It is time for you to show out. You know what I'm saying? I think that Desean Watson has been on that cusp of being the top quarterback in the league. Yeah. Right? This dude is amazing with the ball. He's basically engineered that offense for the past couple years since he came on the scene and since he became a starter. He's been engineering that offense. Him and Hopkins, DeAndre Hopkins, had an amazing connection, even though they traded him away. But now they went and got a lot of speed for him. They got Brandon Cooks there that they added. They also added what's the other receiver? They're I know they're hoping that Fuller can stay healthy this year. They added another receiver too, but they've added some small yet fast players. It looks like they're going to go a lot more vertical this year. They're going to try to go to almost like a really, really spread offense and try to open up Watson, give him more options to run as well. And so we'll see how that works out for him this upcoming season. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how he shows out this upcoming season.
Yeah, and it was Randall Cobb and Kenny Stills.
And Kenny Stills, yeah. So they gave him all speed. Randall Cobb being in that slot. Randall Cobb has been a pretty solid slot receiver for quite a long time now. He definitely makes the catches and can push the ball up the field a little bit. His possession catches, move the chains, etc. So we'll see how that works out. But I'm excited to see what happens. I'm not a fan of the coach because he's trying to bite off Belichick a little too much, I think, and not really focus on his own style. But we're gonna see. I thought they should have kept Hopkins. I think they was on the cusp of greatness, and he broke that up. So, and then number 1, of course, Patrick Mahomes, the highest paid player in sports. Right? Man, he has that Brett Favre vibe to him. You know what I'm saying? Where if you ever watch Brett Favre play, it was like always energetic. It seemed like I don't care how bad they were doing, he always was like happy and smiling.
Yes.
And he had that positive energy, like they were going to win the game no matter what. Right? So he has that demeanor, that calmness to him. But man, this dude arm, oh my God. I mean, I got the dude's jersey. Look, I got number 18 on, right? Peyton Manning. That's that arm right there. That's what it reminds me of. That Peyton Manning arm, man. You know what I'm saying? It's just the ball comes off his hands and it is accurate. Man, he makes the plays. Go back to the Super Bowl. Think about that Super Bowl game when they were down. It looked like they were out. That third down where he somehow got that pass to Tyreek Hill. And that really turned the entire game, right? And you gotta believe that you can win that game to make that pass and the subsequent passes after that. I mean, after that, he was just money the rest of the game, right? to bring them to get that comeback and that win. And I mean, you look at that Texans game too. Like I said, he spotted them 24. He spotted them 24 and was like, all right, it's time to play now. You know, never got nervous. None of that stuff. So Mahomes, my number one, can make all the throws. Also mobile. He can run too.
Yeah. Yes.
He has some speed on him, so he will get you. He'll catch you off guard. But yeah, those five, and like I said, we had the same five, but just a little different order.
Just a little different. Yep.
You know, but I'm pretty sure most people agree them five are probably the top five in the league. Now, two people that didn't get one person that didn't get mentioned is Dak Prescott. What's your thoughts on that? Where do you see him at? He was like one of the leaders in passing last year.
Yeah.
Dallas had the number one offense. How does he not make your top five? What's up?
You know, it's painful for me to say because I'm an Eagles fan, so you already know. Well, I didn't have my man Carson Wentz in the top five, which he could have. To me, Wentz is still better than Dak Prescott. I think Wentz did more with less than last season. You know, so Dak had the weapons. He's got weapons now. He had the running back. He's got the receivers. It's just I don't know. There was just something that he was missing. Like, he put up the numbers. I mean, I can't give him that. To me, Dak is in that top 10 list. Around there. I don't think he's 5th, 6th, 7th. He's in the top 10. He's down there with Wentz. I guess you could put Brady still up there too, but Dak, to me, I don't know if it's just something that he's missing, maybe the leadership skills, or there's some games where you think like they had a chance to make the playoffs last year. I mean, the Eagles were dead to rights. The Eagles shouldn't have had no chance of making the playoffs, especially when they lost all their players. And Dak, I know it was the defense too, but he didn't make enough plays, especially the game against the Eagles at the end of the year, where all they had to do was beat us and get to the playoffs. They had the NFC East wrapped up, but I don't know. There's just something missing about that. Very talented. I can't front on that, but it's more of maybe I don't know if it's just something missing with it. Could be the leadership skills. Like I say, he does ball out though. I'll give him that. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think I feel the same way, man. You know, we'll get to see how he plays this year. You know, he is in a contract year per se. You know, they did put the franchise tag on him, but we'll see if he can break that top five. But you know, I got him right. You know, I got him about like 7 or 8. You know what I'm saying? Because I think I have Wentz just a little bit higher than him. But definitely, you know, when you look at Wentz, Brady, they're like all right there in that top 10 still.
Right in that mix.
In that mix. Drew Brees
still. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of good Matt Ryan. I mean, former MVP. He puts up huge numbers, man, all the time. And but there's always, like I said, there's always something missing. I don't know if they just can't win the big games or whatever. But there's so many good quarterbacks. I mean, but I think we have the top five. With a lot, I think a lot of people would have that same five, maybe different order, but same five.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so moving on, we're going to go over to one of the I want to call it a premier position, but it's really not because they don't like to pay them no more. They just get rid of them
right.
And that is the running back position.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
So I think this one's is pretty hard. I think this one, along with the wide receiver position, are probably the two hardest. Want to give us your breakdown of like what do you look for in an elite running back, or what are you looking for in an elite running back, and then your top 5 running backs in the league currently.
Yep, no doubt. Yeah, the running back position, like you said, it doesn't get the glory it used to get back in the day when it was Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, those type of guys. Even Adrian Peterson, a guy that got cut by the Washington football team just over the weekend, which is ridiculous. I mean, this guy still is productive, and the Washington team could still use him. I guess they're going with younger players, so they could have still used him. He said he was having a good camp, he thought, but they went a different direction. But that's how the running back position is. Very, very, very not respected as it used to be. They don't want to pay the guy. They don't want to pay the guys. There's a few that are getting paid elite money, but there's a lot of good running back, because even for fantasy football, I've been playing fantasy football for so many years, and running back is always a premier position because there's so many of them. You build around that, but in the real NFL, it's just not. the position that it used to be. So, but for me, a running back is able to another player that could carry a team, another position could carry a team. Maybe catch out of backfield, a good blocker, a workhorse back. That was the term that we used to use back in the day. Running back that can carry the ball 200, 300 times and catch out of the backfield, that can take those punishment, can run that football in the fourth quarter. Those are the type of guys that I look forward to with the, being in the top 5, top 10 running backs. So top 5, this was a little, like you said, this was tough. But I was thinking, dang, should I switch my list? Should I not switch my list? But I got it. But I'm sticking with my list. So number 5, I got Derrick Henry at number 5 from the Tennessee Titans. Yes, okay. Derrick Henry, number 5. You talk about workhorse, big back, bruising, 250 pounds, 6'3". To me, he's probably bigger than that. He's probably 260. Solid. 16 touchdowns. He carried the ball 300 times. We talked about workhorse back. He's from the throwback, old school. Tough running back. He had 16 touchdowns and caught only 18 catches off because he's not that type of guy that can catch out of the backfield, but he still caught 18 balls for 2 touchdowns. And he led the Tennessee Titans to the AFC Championship. He carried them on his back, just running right through. His playoff run was so tremendous. This guy, he gets yardage after yardage after yardage. And by the fourth quarter, another key thing I think for elite running backs, he's able to wear teams down. In the fourth quarter, he's fresh, and the team is worn down because they're trying to tackle him every single time. There was a stat I wanted to make sure I got it right, that he carried that offense, and 230 yards and 4 touchdowns in a primetime game against Jacksonville. The following week, he had 170 yards and 2 scores. He entered December with 434 yards and 4 touchdowns for the season. And he, like I said, he carried them in the playoffs. There might be a regression going into this season because he has such a tremendous year, but I really like Derrick Henry. I like what he brings to the table, that bruising, old school type of running back. So he is my number 5. Number 4, I got to go with Alvin Kamara as my number 4 from the New Orleans Saints. He's another weapon. He's one of those weapons. He's got speed, catch out of the backfield. He played through injuries last year. He had over 1,300 yards, scrimmage yards, and 6 touchdowns last season. And that's below his standard because the season before that, he had about 1,600 yards the season before that. So he's a lock to catch at least 80 catches. He's elite as a receiver. Drew Brees always looks for him in the backfield. He's a threat anytime he touches the football. He's just one of those guys that you could give him. I think he can. They try to keep him away. They try to keep him away from running the football so much. They think because he's very slight. He's not the biggest running back, but I think he could carry a workload. But I really like what he brings to the table, his elite skill. So I got Alvin Kamara as my number 4 running back. Okay. Number 3, Ezekiel Elliott from the Dallas Cowboys. This guy just puts up numbers. I think he could be the gold standard of what running backs really are all about. He's tough. He runs between the tackles. He runs on the outside. Decent blocker. He can catch out of the backfield. The season before, he had 77 receptions. Last year, he took a step back from the receptions because he was running. He was running a little bit more, and he carries the ball. He had 54 catches, but he ran for 1,300 yards. His last 2 years, he had 304 carries, 301 carries. That's what we talk about, that carry that workload back. And he continues just to keep pounding inside. He's another guy that when he stays fresh in the fourth quarter, he's hard to tackle. And he was Dallas's offense a lot of times until Dak Prescott took a tremendous leap last year. It was all about Zeke. So he's a classic workhorse back. So I got Zeke at number 3. My number 2, Saquon Barkley. I had him at number 1, and I said, man, but my number 1 guy, I think he just had he had a much better year last year. Saquon Barkley he's a beast, man. I mean, this guy inside, outside, he gets on the outside, man. Every time he touches the ball, he has that Barry Sanders type feel. And he's a little bit bigger than Barry Sanders too. 233 pounds, 6 foot. And he dominated towards the end of the year. Now, he's a little injury prone. That was one of his issues. That was his issue back in Penn State, and it was his issue his first 2 seasons, or last year, I should say. But he still ran for over 1,000 yards. He had 73 or 52 catches, 438 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he had a down year because of the injury. So it was tough. But towards the end of the year, that's when he continued to he found his groove. He was unstoppable during that stretch at the end of the year. But again, catches out of the backfield, hard to tackle, and once he gets in the open field, man, he's got that straight line speed. You can't catch him. So
pretty much.
He's dominant. So I like Saquon. So he's my number 2. My number one running back, Christian McCaffrey. What hasn't this guy done? Like, this guy has done everything for a running back. And this is a guy that people didn't think he could carry a workload, but he carried the ball 287 times, ran for over 1,300 yards, had 15 touchdowns rushing, 116 catches, over 1,000 yards receiving. So he had over 1,000 yards rushing and receiving. He was just elite. He produced the second highest PPR season of all time. I know that's for fantasy purposes, but that was behind LaDainian Tomlinson, and he's in that upper echelon running backs when it comes to like Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson, guys that catch out of backfield, can 100 yards, 1,000 yards rushing and receiving. And like I said, what hasn't he done? I mean, this guy's done it all. He's got speed. He catches out of backfield. He's such a really good runner. And again, he's the 3rd player in league history to finish with more than 1,000 rushing and receiving. Marshall Faulk and Roger Craig, and that was in 99 and 85. So, I mean, this guy's a do-it-all running back. So he is my number 1 running back. Those are my running backs of going into 2020.
All right, cool, man. So, man, I told you this one was gonna be hard.
Yes.
Because the running back position. When you look at what you need to do as a running back, right? You pointed out, you got to be able to pass block. You got to be able to catch out the backfield, which is huge in the NFL today. Being able to be versatile, because if you can catch out the backfield, you can be on the field for all 3 downs, right? You're 3 down back. You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to run between the tackles. You got to be able to have enough speed to get around the corner. So you got to have that breakaway speed. You got to be able to break tackles. There's so many intricate parts of it, right? You got to have that power run element to it, or that elusiveness. So my top 5 is going to be slightly different.
Okay. Can't wait to hear this.
All right. So my number 5 is Dalvin Cook.
Yes.
So
it's hard for me to leave him off the list, man.
So Dalvin Cook, 1,000-yard rusher, but very, very good out of the backfield. Can catch out the backfield. I believe he is a huge part of that Vikings offense. And I think that when that Vikings offense is firing all cylinders, he is the most important piece. Not those receivers, not Cousins, but him. Right? Like, he makes that offense go. Again, he can run. He's shifty enough. He's fast enough where he can get around the corner on you. And he's a good pass blocker. He keeps Kirk Cousins clean for the most part. And I just love the way he plays. I mean, he's a little guy. He's not that big. He's like 5'10". He's like 5'10", like 200 pounds, I think. Right? He's not a big back, but very, very shifty, crafty, good back. But I have him at number 5. Number 4, I have Saquon Barkley. Now, here's why, right? Because you pointed out, you was like, dude, he had for him to get injured, he still had 1,000 yards rushing. I think he had like 500 yards receiving. He was having a pretty good season, but the injuries. That is why I bumped him down a little bit. The injuries, but I think talent-wise, talent-wise, Barkley is the most talented running back in the league. That dude is a freak of nature. He is amazing. And again, he definitely runs between the tackles. One of the, a back that runs between the tackles often. And breaks a lot of tackles. He breaks a lot of tackles. He's physical. He brings the pain. And he can beat you, right? He has the speed to get around you, and he's gone. Once he gets past you, it's over. I have him at number 4. Number three is Derrick Henry. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. As you pointed out, he basically carried Tennessee to the playoffs, right? And so in the middle of the season, Tennessee decided to bench Mariota, and they started Tannehill. And a part of that starting Tannehill was also shifting to now running the ball. And they turned him into a straight workhorse. He was out there pounding the rock every game, 20, 25, 30 carries at some point. But he literally was running them to the playoffs, right? Yes. And one of the best things I saw during that playoffs was, and you can go look at it, the stiff arm on Earl Thomas. Oh my Lord. Man, he must have dragged him. He dragged him as he was running down the sideline, and Earl Thomas didn't want none of it. He didn't want not a single piece of that at all. So he's my number 3. Henry was my number 3. Number two is Ezekiel Elliot. I think that Ezekiel Elliot is still the most important piece of that Dallas offense. Again, a top 5 pick. This dude can run the ball, man. Like, he gets going. He's smooth with the ball. He's very, he doesn't fumble. He's protective of the ball. He can catch out the backfield. They don't use him out the backfield as much with catching, but he does have the ability to catch out the backfield. But I love the way he runs between the tackles, man. They built that offensive line to have like a power run game, and he brings it. He brings it. He breaks a lot of tackles. That stiff arm is crazy. He's known to stiff arm people. He's known to lower his helmet and put it right in your chest and keep going. And he's shifty enough to shake a defender in one-on-one or in open space, or even in the even in the backfield, being able to break away and get away. So he's a really, really good running back. And again, I think when he's running the ball well, typically Dallas wins. I think the stat is I think they've won 80 or 90% of their games when he goes over 75 yards. So as long as he's running, when he's running the ball well, man, they're pretty much unbeatable. So he's my number 2. And of course, number 1, I think it's probably a consensus as well. Christian McCaffrey, man. What don't he do in Carolina? I've seen him actually throw a touchdown in Carolina too, right?
Yes.
So what don't he do?
What does he do? Right.
You can line him up at receiver. You know what I'm saying? He can go and run a slant. He can run an out route. He can do all those different things. He can come in the backfield. He can pass block. He can run between the tackles. He can run outside. He has the speed to break away. He can do everything. You know what I'm saying? And Carolina is literally just force feeding him, man. He's probably touching the ball 5, maybe 400 to 500 times in a season. He's touching the ball a lot. And so he rarely fumbles. Again, another guy who, you don't really see him he's not a power back, but he does break tackles. He can break tackles. He can run between the tackles really well. And like I said, he's my top back in the league. He might not be you know what? He's going to be my top back in the league, period. I was going to say, maybe next year he might not be, but he probably is. But is there anybody outside of that 5? And like I said, we had a different list per se. We had, because you had Kamara, Alvin Kamara on your list. I don't have him as a top 5. I have him more 8 or 9. But is there any running back that you man, they could break that top 5 But they just not there yet, or like they could be on the cusp of it.
There's a couple. Well, you mentioned Dalvin Cook, and I was debating with him and Alvin Kamara, but it's funny because Cook and Kamara, they both have had some injuries, and Dalvin Cook, when he puts that complete season together, I mean, he's so dominant. Like you said, he's so good. He's got good speed, and he carries that Minnesota offense as good as their receivers were. And Kirk Cousins, we always get at him about being out that guaranteed money, but Kirk Cousins, he's a decent quarterback. I mean, he makes plays, but when Dalvin Cook was rolling, Minnesota was almost unbeatable. And when they just let him roll like that, they made the playoffs. They got to the second round. But that was off of mostly Dalvin Cook. So he was one guy, but there's, you got the other list, I guess, around the top 10, like Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon. I mean, those are a couple of the guys, Josh Jacobs. I mean, those are some of the guys I think that I think they had another good year, they could maybe crack that top 5. So there's quite a few running backs that are really on the cusp of reaching that top 5, top 10.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I had so when I first started doing my list, I had Nick Chubbs at 5. I had him at 5.
Okay.
Right? I think Nick Chubbs is he's an ascending running back. Like, because he's in Cleveland, a lot of people don't realize how good he is. But that dude can play, man. That dude can run the ball well. Is one of the reasons, they ended up Cleveland ended up signing what's the other back to back him up? What is his name right now? Hunt. They ended up signing Hunt. They ended up signing Kareem Hunt. They traded away Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson was really their back who can catch out the backfield and change it up. But Nick Chubb has been learning or been catching the ball out the backfield a little better as of late. And so it looks like he might be able to become that all-around back that they're looking for. The dude can run the ball, though. Nick Chubb can run the ball.
He can run the ball, yes.
And when Cleveland was looking good, it was typically they was looking good because that dude was running the ball well. I think he had a couple of games where he went over 150 yards. I think last season he was second in the league in rushing with 1,400 yards, I believe. Yeah,
1,494. Yep.
So he's there. He's on the map. You got to pay attention, but because Cleveland is losing quite often, you don't really see him or hear about him as much. Right. But he's there.
He's there. Yep. Yeah, and then Joe Mixon, he's another one. Like, he plays for a really bad team, but he had a great year, 1,100 yards rushing. And Cleveland or Cincinnati was just terrible. I mean, they were horrible. So right now, they got the quarterback now, so maybe that'll help him out, become even more efficient of a running back. So, they got Joe Burrow now. So they still won't be good, but they got a bright future going. So I really like him too as well. I like Joe Mixon as well.
I mean, hopefully with with AJ Green coming back and possibly being healthy, that might open up some running lanes for them too, because now they actually got some receivers for once, and they got a quarterback that can throw them the ball.
That can throw the football now. Yes.
All right. So speaking of receivers, right? I just mentioned AJ Green, who used to be a top 5 receiver in the league. I don't think anybody will say he is now, but he used to be a top 5 receiver in the league. Let's get to our top 5 receivers, which I think is the hardest position to determine who's top 5. And so go ahead, before you give us your top 5, what's your criteria for a top receiver in this league? How do you evaluate them? And then what's your top 5?
Yeah, top 5 receivers. This was the hardest one, man. I mean, there's the top 10 is, I think that's where, any of these guys could be top 5, but, we just only narrowed it down to 5 because we know if we did 10, it would have went up. So, I mean, we would have been on longer. So, but criteria to me for a receiver, the league has become so pass happy now. So you got to have at least one really good receiver. And I think you have to be a playmaker. Stats, they tell some of the story, and you got a lot of good receivers that are putting up very elite and dominant stats. But I think it all depends on the impact of your quarterback, who's able to deliver the football to the receiver. Also, I think it's just the eye test, the route running. Do they have good hands? Can they separate from solid defense, a good corner? Are they able to raise their game up and get all the attention to them on one side of the football, on one side of the field, and they elevate everybody else on the other side, on the other side of the field? I think those are some of the criterias of rating a wide receiver. So I gotta go with I'll stick with my top five. Like I said, this is tough, man. I had a hard time really breaking this one down. So I'm gonna go, okay, number 5. I gotta go with Devante Adams. We talked about him earlier.
Okay.
He's elite. I mean, he missed a lot of last season, over a month with a toe injury. He had a turf toe injury, but he got it going during the last 8 games, including the playoffs. He racked up 44 catches, 610 yards, and 4 touchdowns in his last 8 games, or last 5 games, excuse me. So he has an elite quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, who, like we just said, is still that bad man. And he's the only one over there that Aaron Rodgers trusts as a receiver. So he's a guy that can separate. I mean, his route running is crazy good. And the craziest thing is he still put up pretty good numbers. He had 83 catches, 127 yards. He almost had 1,000 yards receiving. That's missing a month of the season. So so Devante Adams is my number 5. Number 4. This was tough, man. I had to go with I'm changing it on the fly. That's what I'm trying to. I'm gonna stick with it. My number 4 is Tyreek Hill. I gotta go with him.
Ooh, okay.
This guy is another guy that gets injured a lot. He had a down year last year, but still put up good numbers. He had 58 catches. You talk about speed, probably the fastest player in the league. Anytime Patrick Mahomes just throws it up to him and he gets open. So that's the thing. Like he gets open regardless if he's covered, because he's got the speed. Sometimes Patrick Mahomes, he outruns the ball, and Patrick Mahomes has a strong arm. So that's he's got the speed. He had an unbelievable run in the Super Bowl also as well. He just got to stay healthy. But the speed's there. The 2 seasons ago, 87 catches, over almost 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns. So I gotta go with Tyreek Hill as my number 4. Number 3, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, this guy,
okay.
Luke Hopkins, he's just elite. The guy just good hands, great hands, probably the best hands in football right now. Gets separation, doesn't have a lot of speed, but he knows how to get open. And I wish my Eagles would have traded for him. And that's all it took for the Texans to get rid of him. The Eagles could have used somebody like DeAndre Hopkins on their squad, man, because Hopkins just puts up just dominant numbers. And the funny thing is, he had a down year from 2 seasons ago where he had 96 catches, 1,300 yards. Before the season after, in 2018, 115 catches, over 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns. Last year, he had 104 catches, 1,100 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So he had career lows last season, but now he's over in Arizona. He's going to help Kyler Murray. So Arizona should be much better. He's a number 1 receiver. Like I said, some of the best hands in football, if not the best hands in football. He hardly ever drops passes. So to me, he's number 3. Number 2, Julio Jones. Julio Jones is still dominant, man. Such a big target. You talk about speed, size, catch radius ability, that, got big hands. Just elite. Just continue to put up huge numbers. He's not a touchdown guy. I think that's more of the system than him. But he just makes catches, like just unbelievable catches. And the catches he makes on the sidelines, and like I said, he's big, fast, strong, gets open, and he still is he's getting older. He's 31, but still had 99 catches, 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns. Those are numbers you just don't get from just an average receiver. So he's physical. So yes, Julio Jones is my number 2. Number 1, Michael Thomas. I had to put him at number 1. I think he's the best receiver in football right now. He had 149 catches, broke the record for most catches in the NFL. He broke Jerry Rice's record. That was in 1993. He was the Offensive Player of the Year. Just efficient. That's the one word I can say about Michael Thomas. And Drew Brees just knows, and Drew Brees has a lot of weapons, but he knows that's one guy he can rely on if he needs a first down, if he needs a yards, he did as many yards he can get. He just throws it right to Michael Thomas. He knows Michael Thomas is going to be in the right place, right time. Great route runner, and continues just to get better. He's only 27 years old, so Michael Thomas is my number 1 receiver.
Man, that's a tough list, man. That's a tough list. That is, whoo.
I think we might have lost Tyon. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh.
Hear me?
Oh, I'm here.
Can you hear me? You can hear me, right?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay,
yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, I was saying that's a tough list, man. That's a really good list. As you stated, man, it's hard to It's hard to figure out the top 5 receivers. I mean,
yep. And
so like I said, my list, I think the top 3, I think me and you both have the top 3 the same.
Okay.
Just a little different in order. So I'm gonna present mine real quick. And my number 5, and I want to bring up his stats just to make sure. My number 5 is Devante Adams. So I had Devante Adams at number 5. Last season, like I said, he was hurt, but he ended up almost having 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. But I mean, simply, he is their number 1 target on Green Bay. This dude gets open, double teams, single coverage, zone, whatever they run, he finds the open spot, and typically Aaron Rodgers finds him. So he figures out ways to get open all the time, man. He's a good route runner, great hands. He doesn't drop the ball often, and he's your blanket. He is typically the blanket for Aaron Rodgers. So I have him at number 5. Number 4, this guy, people are sleeping on this guy, but he's a hell of a receiver, and that's Keenan Allen. The injuries kind of keep him quiet. A lot of people don't pay attention to him, but last year he had 104 catches for 1,199 yards, 6 touchdowns. 15 of those catches was for 20+ yards. Right? I mean, he is a guy who goes and gets the ball. Right? He was Philip Rivers' main target there. And like I said, great route runner. He doesn't have the speed that a lot of other receivers have. I mean, he knows it, right? I think he just called out Tyreek Hill. And he was like, yeah, y'all talk about Tyreek Hill, whatever. I'm the best receiver in this division.
Yes.
I am. Not Tyreek Hill. I'm the best receiver in this division. And I kind of got to agree with him right now. Until further notice, like I said, the hands, amazing hands. He high points the ball. He's a great route runner. And when he goes and gets the ball, he goes and gets it. You can see him making diving catches all over the place, man. He holds on to the ball. So he's my number 4 receiver. My number 3, which is going to be shocking to a lot of people, because this guy led the league in receptions, and that is Michael Thomas. So, and the reason why, don't get me wrong, I love Michael Thomas. Like I said, 149 receptions, 1,700 yards, 9 touchdowns. Michael Thomas is, again, Drew Brees' security blanket. You can see Michael Thomas, he runs a lot of short routes, right? He runs a lot of short and intermediate routes. You run the 5-yard ins, 5-yard out, 7-yard in. That's where he literally, plays within that range quite often. He gets the deep ball. Sometimes, but he doesn't have the greatest speed. Again, just like like Keenan Allen. He doesn't have greatest speed, but he has great hands. He key to details, man. He runs routes, right? He's a really good route runner. And so that's probably why I have him number 3, just because although he's a great route runner, he has all the catches. I feel like he's missing that explosiveness. That's what I miss from Michael Thomas, is that explosiveness. And that explosiveness is what the other 2 receivers that I have in front of him has. So number 2, DeAndre Hopkins. I think he has the best hands in the game. He also creates those explosive plays. His numbers this past season, again, as you stated, was a little down. They were a little down. But let me see. I got him right here. He had 1,165 yards, 7 touchdowns. Again, 16 catches over 20 plus yards. He had 1 over 40 plus yards. This year, you saw Desean Watson kind of throwing it to other receivers, throwing it a little bit more, not honing in on DeAndre Hopkins as often as he normally did. And another thing is, DeAndre Hopkins saw a lot of double coverage this year too. Anytime he was going deep, they kept that safety over the top and that corner underneath. They bracket coverage on him all day. And that's his biggest threat, is the deep ball. Like I say, he's a good route runner. He doesn't create the separation that Thomas does, but that's where he makes up for it with his hands, right? Like Thomas creates the separation where like he's like open. Hopkins is still open even though he has somebody on him. He's still open because his hands are just amazing. But Watson didn't take those type of chances this year with him. We're going to see in Arizona, you have a young quarterback. Young quarterbacks typically take more chances. So Kyler Murray's going to probably throw it in double and sometimes triple coverage, and Hopkins will go and get the ball. So we'll see. We'll probably see a resurgence of Hopkins' numbers this year. And my number 1 guy, I still think he's at the top of the pecking order for receivers, Julio Jones. Right? Double me. That's what you got. You got to double him.
Got to put that safety over the top, man.
Because first off, he's a freak of nature just with his size and his speed, right? He's a freak of nature, right? He's not a Calvin Johnson freak of nature, but he's a freak of nature when it's on right, because not only does he have the size and speed, he has the route running. He is a very, very good route runner. And one-on-one coverage, there's nobody in the league outside of maybe Gilmore, probably Gilmore. There's nobody that can guard that dude one-on-one. Period. You know what I'm saying? Catches the ball, hands, extension. It never touches. I rarely see a time where the ball touches his body. He fully extends. He goes up and gets the ball. Diving catches. He's actually a really good run blocker too. To give you some credit, he's a really good run blocker as well. But for Julio, he doesn't have the touchdowns. But he doesn't have the touchdowns by design in that offense. They typically run the ball when they get it closer to the end zone, so it kind of takes him away. But I really wish they would throw the fade route to him a little more often. I think that throwing the fade route, he would probably have 15 or 20 touchdowns if they just threw the fade route to him. Just throw it up and let him go get it.
Let him go get it. Yep.
So, but them 5, and like I said, I had some other guys that was like on the cusp. Mike Evans. Mike Evans in Tampa Bay. I love that dude. Big physical receiver. Good route runner too. Great hands. Who do you have? What other receiver did you have? Like right outside the top 5.
Right, top 5, man. Like you said, Mike Evans definitely was one, and his partner Chris Godwin, man. Goodness, this is another guy. Like he just improved. Like over, I think if he has another good year, now they got Tom Brady as their quarterback. So you got a guy that you had James Winston, who, as much as James Winston threw those 30 interceptions, he still threw over 5,000 yards. Yeah, right. And both receivers were over 1,000 yards. So they got Tom Brady at their at the quarterback, the GOAT. So now you got those guys. So Godwin, I think if he's had another elite year, he'll be in the top 5 pretty soon. Amari Cooper, He was right up there. Odell Beckham, where do you have him? Like, this guy was top 3, top 5 the last couple of years, and then still had 1,000 yards. It's just he had a down year though. Like in injury, he was injured last year. Played all 16 games, but just didn't have a good year. The whole Cleveland Browns didn't have a good year.
Yeah, and I was about to say, some other receivers, like you brought up Odell Beckham. I want to throw. I mean, Landry had a solid season last year on the side of Odell Beckham. But one guy that people probably sleep on that I think is like he's emerging and he's been slept on because of injuries is Devante Parker. Devante Parker had 70 catches for 1,200 yards last season and 9 touchdowns. And he was top 5 in passes over in receptions over 20 plus yards. He had 21. He was going deep quite often. So, he's a guy that's on the cusp. You mentioned Amari Cooper already. I had him as well, right outside that top 5. And one guy who kind of quietly played well, Stephon Diggs. So, he was up there, and now he's in Buffalo. So we'll see how that turns out for him. I think he's a guy who can get back up there and get back in that, in that conversation, because I think he was in that top 5 conversation for a minute. But I said the key thing is those top 3. I think those top 3 are interchangeable, but I think that's everybody's top 3 at least, right?
Top 3, at least in any type of order. I think those are your top 3. Yeah.
All right, and so finally we go to our last position on the offense. We didn't go offensive line because people don't even really know who offensive linemen are anyway. You know what I'm saying? Even though they probably should garner more respect because they do block for the quarterback quite often and make all the other positions work, right? So they're an integral part of the offense, but we just went all skill positions for the most part. So we're going to go to our last skill position on offense, which is the tight end position. Who is your top 5 tight ends? What do you look for in a tight end? It's on you.
Yeah, this tight end position was hard too because I believe we're gonna have the same top 3. I'm thinking. We'll see. We'll see how our list goes. Our lists are, mostly the same, but we got some different ones too. Again, tight ends got to be an all-around tight end. You got to be able to block. Got to be able to catch the football out of the back. From when you line up and you get open. Be a really good receiving tight end. Have a little speed. Some are more explosive than others. Some are very good playmakers. They're like receivers, like big receivers. Some of these tight ends are huge, man. And some of them have been former receivers that are playing tight ends. So I think you be able to line up anywhere in the lineup because you got somebody like a Travis Kelsey who lines up at receiver, or Zach Ertz lines up at receiver. They split wide as a receiver, and then they get open. Some are real good at route running. Some have better route running than wide receivers. So I think the tight end position is very top heavy these last couple of years. So, I'll start my list here. I think number 5. I gotta go with Rob Gronkowski, man. I think he's gonna be. He's back. He retired for a year. Gronk's got his guy. Got Tom Brady, as we talked about. Tom Brady now is over in Tampa Bay. Rob Gronkowski, like I said, he sat out last year because he just had enough. He said that he just couldn't do it anymore. He was banged up, all the injuries and everything. So, but the last time we saw Gronk, he was a shell of himself, like the shell of his old self. Like he was limping in the Super Bowl. He was making plays. He still was getting open, but he didn't have that elite speed, or he never had really elite speed, I should say. He had some speed, but he was a good blocker, played real well in that system with Belichick, and he got open. He just knew how to get open. That seam route that Brady used to throw to him all the time, just go get it. Big target, 6'6", 265, 270. Like I say, he's coming off now. His body should be recovered now. He knows Tom Brady, knows that system that Tom Brady's going to bring to Tampa. I know it's going to be a little bit different, but he knows how to get open. And at that time when Gronk, he was probably the most dangerous offensive weapon we've had in years. Like Gronkowski, he was just a big, strong guy that just got open. He was tough to tackle. But the injuries really, really derailed his career. But I'm very optimistic that he could get back into being a efficient, good tight end. Now his body should have recovered from all the hits that he had taken. So definitely got to go with Gronk at number 4. Number 5. Gronk number 5. Number 4. I got to go with Mark Andrews. I got to go from Baltimore. This guy had a really solid year. 64 catches, 852 yards, 10 touchdowns. He was a security blanket for Lamar Jackson. He was, again, just dominant, catching the football, really solid blocker. He dealt with a bunch of injuries last year too himself, another guy that got banged up. He had 98 targets. He had Kelsey, Kittle were the only tight ends to outscore Andrews on a per game basis in standard in the league. So Mark Andrews put up a big number, especially coming from the season before when he only had 34 catches, 500 yards, and only 3 touchdowns. So he had a breakout season. The workload is there. Like again, when Lamar Jackson got in trouble, Lamar Jackson just continued to look for him each and every time. So he was a legit weapon. So he's very reliable. So he's definitely in the upper tier of tight end. So I'm going with so he established himself. So I'm going with Mark Andrews from Baltimore at number 4. Number 3, going with my guy Zach Ertz. This is my guy, man. I love Zach Ertz from the Philadelphia Eagles. Continues just to put up numbers, and Zach Ertz is he's 1 year removed from setting a single season record for most receptions at the tight end position, 116. That was Carson Wentz. That's Carson Wentz's security blanket. Another good tight end, great tight end. He gets open. Doesn't have the elite speed, but he has size. Can do great route running. And when teams play the Eagles, they know that he's the guy that you got to key on. He's mostly the main weapon that Wentz went for. Nick Foles a couple years ago, that was the security blanket for him as well. He's just reliable, really good hands. We talked about DeAndre Hopkins having great hands. Ertz got really great hands too. Now he'll drop a few, but mostly if anything in his vicinity, he's catching the football too. So he's just a really good tight end. Like I said, he's a decent blocker. He'll get in there and mix it up a little bit. Gets open. So I got Zach Ertz as my number 3 tight end. Number 2, I got to go with George Kittle at number 2.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, yes, he's to me, he's probably the most complete tight end. Elite blocker. Like this is an offensive lineman type blocking that he has, and he's tough. I mean, when he gets the ball in the open field, man, he just be stiff arming cats. He runs people over. Size, physical, 250, 6'4". Established himself as he had 85 catches, 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's coming. He only played 14 games last year. He has that rare ability, like that after the catch ability. That's another thing that I think what receivers and tight ends really should have is that when they get the ball, they can take it to the house. They can take it to get that touchdown. So George Kittle, like I said, he's tough. He's like I said, he's probably the most complete tight end. He has burst, quick, run after catch. He's just got a mean streak about him, man. I mean, like I said, he'll run you over. He doesn't care. So he led that San Francisco offense. So he was one of Jimmy Garoppolo, another tight end that's a security blanket that's reliable. So George Kittle is my number 2. Number 1, got to go with Travis Kelsey, another guy that just got paid. Travis Kelsey is my number 1 tight end. He finished with 97 catches, 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns. The season before, he had 103, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. So he just continues to put up numbers. He's become the first tight end in NFL history to reach 1,000 yards in 4 consecutive seasons. He finished, again, 97 receptions, 1,200 yards. He's just dominant. And he was dominant during the playoff run. Patrick Mahomes looks for him. He's the best tight end route runner in football. Decent blocker. Could be a little bit better, but he's not there to block. He's there to catch the football, got speed. Like you said, route running is like just elite. Better than some receivers. He knows how to get open. He goes against a man. You can't cover him man to man or in zone. He just continues. He catches over the middle. He's using all types of offensive formations. Andy Reid just knows how to use them. Smart player, and he creates mismatches. And compared, when he's with Tyreek Hill and the running game, Patrick Mahomes, man, he's just on an elite offense. So got to give it to Travis Kelsey as my number one tight end.
All right. Now that's a pretty solid list. I gotta agree. That's a pretty solid list. As I'm listening, I'm like, man, I kind of want to change mine just a little bit. But the funny thing is that we have 4 of the 5 same tight ends on the list. Like I said, different orders per se. But we got 4 of the 5. Before I go on my list, I want to give a shout out to Tiger Park Show Live. They're tuning in. Mocha Bella, she's on. Thank you for tuning in. Teron Rodriguez, he's always on here, so we always appreciate the support. I believe you got an award for like best fan like last week, so I think that award is in the mail or something. I believe so. Because Trey said he was gonna put it in the mail, so appreciate you guys for tuning in and commenting. And again, like the page or like the YouTube channel. So hit the bell. Check us out. Let's say every Monday, 4:30 Pacific time, which was 7:30 Eastern time. So check it out. Check us out. So my top 5 tight ends, and when I think about again, you think about the blocking ability, run, pass blocking ability, being able to run routes, catch the ball, of course. And then I think that yak, them yards after catch, has become intricate part of the tight end position. So, initially we only needed tight ends to kind of move the chains. But now the way tight ends are used now, tight ends are used to get home run plays now.
Yeah, right? They are.
And so I think these 5 tight ends that I picked kind of do all of those things. So my number 5, which is going to probably surprise you, is Darren Waller from the Oakland Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So Darren Waller had 90 receptions last year for 1,145 yards and 3 touchdowns. But an integral piece of that offense, he was Derek Carr, one of Derek Carr's main weapons. And he helped with the run blocking really well. Josh Jacobs, I think he did have 1,000 yards, and maybe he got to close to 1,000 yards last season. But very good for a rookie. And again, he's a guy who they lined him up at receiver. They lined him inside. They lined him outside. They lined him in the slot. He can get open. Big target. He can go up and get the ball. One thing I like about tight ends is versatility. He had the size and the speed to take advantage of mismatches against cornerbacks and against linebackers. He used the speed against cornerbacks. He used the size against cornerbacks. He used the speed against linebackers. So he was my number 5. My number 4, Mark Andrews. Right, Mark Andrews had a stellar year. You look at 64 catches, 852 yards. He had 10 touchdowns though. He was the red zone target.
Yes.
And he's a big dude. I think Mark Andrews was 6'5". It's like 6'4". Yeah, 6'5". Like yeah, right. He's a big dude. So they used him like you're supposed to use a big target in the red zone. Right. He got to the red zone, and if they wasn't running the ball, they was typically looking for him to make the catch in the back of the end zone. They moved him around as well. They didn't move him all the way out to like wide receiver, but they used him a little bit. They flexed him out and kind of got him some one-on-one matchups, threw a lot of jump balls to him. He was really good at that. Really good blocker. Like I said, this run there, that team ran for over 2,000 yards. He was an integral part of that run blocking there. And again, they kept him. They let Hayden Hurst leave because Mark Andrews, they considered him the more explosive and more complete tight end. So my number three was Zach Ertz, right? So I think we both had Zach Ertz at number three. You know, outside of the injuries, you know, that's the only thing that hurts Zach Ertz is, you know, he be injured. But I love Zach Ertz. He has the speed, he has the quickness, the route running, the hands. You can line him up all over the field. You can line him up at any position. He creates mismatches everywhere. You know, 88 catches, 916 yards. He had 6 touchdowns. And this is typical for me. Like, that's typical for Zach Ertz. When I always think of tight ends in the league, I think of Zach Ertz. Like, you know, the security blanket. Most tight ends are security blankets, but he was the security blanket for Carson Wentz. You know what I'm saying? And before then, Nick Foles. I love Zach Ertz. I've loved him for years, man. He's a good tight end. You can put him 1, 2, or 3, in my opinion, depending on, you know, what you like and what you need. So number 2, this is what we're gonna get. Number 2, I got Travis Kelsey at number 2.
Okay.
Travis Kelsey, I feel is like the premier catching tight end at this point in the league. He catches literally everything that's thrown to him. I swear it seems like he does not drop nothing at all. 97 receptions, 1,229 yards, of course, 5 touchdowns. You know, that offense is explosive, but Kelsey is a part of that explosiveness. You know, he catches the ball and he gets yards after catches. He breaks tackles. He stiffs arm people. He's a good run blocker, good pass blocker. But they use him a lot to catch the ball. They use him a lot. It reminds me a lot of Tony Gonzalez, how they used Tony Gonzalez back in the day. Just so happens he was in the Chiefs too.
Right.
But he reminds me a lot of that in his aspect of like being out, going able to run routes, catch the ball. Very good. He's a good pass blocker. Like I said, not great. He's a good pass blocker. He's a good run blocker. Not great. Same as Tony Gonzalez. You know, a good pass blocker. Not great. And of course, my number 1 is in San Francisco, George Kittle. George Kittle might as well have been a receiver. He might as well, because he was the number 1 receiver for San Francisco. When they look for big plays, typically he was their big play target. They will line him out on the outside. I remember if you remember the Green Bay game when they played Green Bay, right at halftime, they got a huge chunk play with him where he threw it down the sideline. He made a huge play, but he was doing that all season. You know, I think this upcoming season, you're going to see them throw the ball to him a lot more. You're going to see him line up on the outside a lot more, but he lines up really well on the outside. He's a road blocker. Like, he pancakes dudes.
Yes,
man. He lays people out, and he's the integral part of that run offense. That heavy package run offense that San Francisco uses, where they have the 3 backs. They run anybody back there. It doesn't matter, because he typically is one of the lead blockers, and he's coming on the outside. He's cleaning out whoever's in front of him. So you love that about him. He gets the yards after catch, which is huge. He catches the ball, he breaks tackles, and he consistently moves the chain. It was sad that in the playoffs or in that Super Bowl, we didn't see him as much. I don't know why. I don't understand their game plan at that point. You know, but I think he is the top tight end in the league currently.
It's a good list. That's a really good list. Right. I mean, we had almost the same type of list. And, you know, as you said, like, there was so many other tight ends that you could have went with, you know, too. Hunter Henry, he was one. He just can't stay healthy. But when he does, he's pretty elite. So I mean, him, as you said, Hayden Hurst, who's now over in Atlanta, Austin Hooper, who was in Atlanta, he's in Cleveland. So these are some of the guys. Tyler Higbee, who the Rams used as they was using him as a receiver, really. Like, he's an actual receiver that just played tight end. So those are some. Evan Ingram. I mean, I had him on my fantasy team last year. I had Ingram and Hooper on my fantasy team, and Ingram, he was putting up the numbers, but it was just more. He just got injured. He only played 8 games. So just can't stay healthy.
Yeah, man, and you look at that like, and I got some, that after 5, I think there's like just like a collection, right? Like they're like all gathered. Like there's not like a huge difference. Like, it's like those 5, and it's just like everybody else, right? So so you pointed out like Hunter Henry, who I think is a good tight end. Jared Cook in New Orleans, I think he's a solid tight end. Austin Hooper, of course. I thought Austin Hooper had a great season. Now he's in Cleveland. He's going to be they're going to run like this 2 tight end set. We'll see how that, because they're going to use him and Njoku. So we'll see how that works out. Njoku showed like some flashes of being a good tight end. I don't know if that's going to, continue or not. Gesicki, I thought Gesicki in Miami was looking pretty solid. And it's another tight end, Fant. Noah Fant. Be on the lookout for him and Sockinson in Detroit. When I think he ended up getting injured, but another guy who looks good. So I think there's a lot of good tight ends, man.
Yeah, and those guys, some of those guys are just as good. If they get good quarterback play, they'll be solid. Like you said, T.J. Hawkinson. If Matthew Stafford stays healthy, Detroit was having a really good year until he gets hurt, and then Hawkinson gets banged up too. So Noah Fant, he turned it on. You said he turned it on in the second half of the season. Because Lock. There's a lot of expectations on Drew Lock to really, play well now. So he got expectations. So we'll see how he does. You said Jared Cook. I like the pick that you picked of Darren Waller. He was going to be my number 5, but I said I had Gronk. I'm like, okay, Gronk. If we don't know what Gronk we're going to get. We're going to get that motivated Gronk. We're going to hopefully he doesn't get banged up and injured. So I said, I got to go with the future Hall of Famer and Gronk. But, Darren Waller, like I said, he put up huge numbers, 90 catches, 1,100 yards. And the quarterback play was shaky at best. He still put up those numbers. So he's a solid tight end as well.
I was about to say, with Tampa Bay, it's so hard because you look at Gronk, and Gronk is there, but they still got Cameron Brate there. They have the other tight end there too. And I'm just like, how are they going to get, all of them the ball? And like I said, there's some good tight ends in the league.
Yes.
It's really about just the quarterback play, man. It's just like, how much do your quarterback throw to him or looking toward him, etc. Delaney, I was thinking of Delaney Walker from Tennessee. He's a really good tight end. He got hurt last year. I don't know what's going to happen to him this year, but another tight end that you can put in there, maybe not top 5, but like right in that group, right underneath. That second category.
Jack Doyle, he's another one. And now he's got Phillip Rivers throwing in the football. We know Phillip Rivers tight ends, Antonio Gates. Phillip Rivers looking for him. So Doyle, if he could just stay healthy, tight end position is funny. The tight end position is always banged up. It's like you got guys like you said, Ertz, Kittle at one point was banged up, and there's a lot of good tight ends, top 10, 15 in that range.
All right. So, before we end today, again, we got football season coming up. To close us out, what is something you looking forward to this season?
Man, there's so much. I know we talked about some of our biggest storylines about 2-3 weeks ago, I think it was, and we were talking about some of the biggest storylines. I think I'll start with my Eagles first. I got to start with them, see if they can actually they can stay healthy, and Carson Wentz ascends into now. There's no doubt that you're a top 5 quarterback. You got the talent, you got the the arm. You're a playmaker. You got one of those wild plays. Can he stay healthy? Can he lead the Eagles? Again, they got the speed now at receiver. Defensively, they upgraded in the secondary. So can the Eagles take that next step? They won the NFC East, which was a terrible division last year. Can they stave off Dallas this year again and maybe win 10, 11 games? So that's one of the storylines. Another storyline, can Lamar Jackson, can he win in the playoffs? He's 0-2. You're the MVP. Now it's time to step it up even more and lead Baltimore, because they were the clear cut. They were the favorites to come out of the AFC during the regular season, and they're the favorites in a lot of games. I mean, if you're into gambling, I think they're favored in like 15 of the 16 games. That's crazy. So they're predicted to go like 15-1 or 14-2, something crazy. They went 13-3 last year. So can he take his game and elevate his game even more to the next step and really become into that upper echelon in quarterback? So that's another storyline, and a couple more just to we got this unprecedented season with COVID-19, the coronavirus going on. Can the NFL, can they finish the season? There's always been questions of how they're going to be able to finish the season, the testing and things like that. So this is going to be one of those odd seasons, and there was not much training camp, no preseason games. So teams that are there, they got to rely on more of their veterans. I think continuity with the teams, with if you still have your coaching, quarterback, players that have been on the team a long time, I think those are the teams that are going to get through this. And last one is, can Patrick Mahomes, like, how many more Super Bowls can this guy win? I mean, he got his money, big, huge contract, MVP, Super Bowl MVP. Andy Reid just re-signed for another, I think, 4 years. And can they continue to dominate? And will he be able to continue to make plays and be the face of the league? And it all depends on how many more Super Bowls can he win. So those are just some of the storylines I'm looking forward to in this upcoming season.
All right, cool, man. Look, for me, I'm looking forward to seeing this third wild card spot. Right. So they introduced the third wild card spot. That means that only the top team in the AFC and the NFC gets a bye week. Yeah. That is going to be real interesting because, I feel like you always have that one team right on the outside that is getting hot or finally getting to that groove, but they just got into it a little too late. It'll be interesting to see who are those last wild card teams this year and what kind of noise they would make, right? So, like, you look at, like, last year, Dallas might have been that last wild card team in the NFC. What do they end up doing if they get in the playoffs, per se, right? Because they're a team that's legitimately built to be a playoff team, things like that. Like, it'll be interesting to see. That's one thing. Number two, I am a Denver Broncos fan. So, even though I got the course on, because like I said, Peyton Manning is my favorite quarterback of all time, the break team, you know what I'm saying? But I'm a Denver Broncos fan. I want to see how this team offensively shows up. So they made the switch finally to Lock. They got rid of Flacco, which I hated them signing in the first place. I hated the signing. I said it wasn't going to work, and it didn't work. But they got Lock. They added 2 receivers and Judy and KJ Hamler. So they got the size and they added speed to that offense. They got Noah Fant. I almost feel like this is the offense or similar to the offense that Peyton Manning had when he broke the record. And with that offense, that's when he had Demaryius Thomas, and both Thomases, Julius Thomas at tight end. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that offensive team, like, they were just putting up points. It was just a lot of speed on the field. It was a lot of speed. So this Denver team, on paper, has a lot of speed. So it'll be interesting to see how Locke, connects with all these pieces. So that's one storyline that I'm looking forward to seeing how that works. I'm also looking at Lamar Jackson. Does Lamar Jackson finally take that next step? I think there's a lot of, I think people put a little too much pressure on him. You pointed out he's 0-2 so far. But, man, I mean, what's been in the league? 2 years? 2 years, right? I mean, to be 0-2 in 2 years, I take it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, to make the playoffs, your first 2 years, and in your second year win MVP, I'll take it, You don't want to be having this conversation 5 years from now, you're like 0-5 in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to be having that conversation. You know what I'm saying? I mean, 3 years from now, you're 0-5. So, hopefully he takes the next step. He gets that win, gets that monkey off his back. That first win is pretty hard in the playoffs, man, for most quarterbacks. And with you being the MVP, you had a bullseye on you, and you just ran into the wrong team, man. Sometimes it's about matchups. You ran into the wrong team in Tennessee, who just pounded the rock. They pounded it, So I like to see him. I like to see him take that next step as far as, his accuracy, throwing the ball. He needs to become a more accurate passer. But, I mean, you're an MVP. It ain't too much, you can really say, like, oh, he's that. Like, there's only little tweaks here and there. Yeah. But they put a really good team around him. And I feel like they are in win now mode. They added some good pieces on defense to help him. Patrick McQueen was drafted to be a linebacker. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he steps up this next year.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's a good one. And I think the last one I want to do is like Russell Wilson in Seattle. Like, the pieces are there now. Russell Wilson, like I say, he's never gotten hardly any MVP votes. I think none, actually, which is crazy. And, this guy, as we talked about, like, elite of elite. Like, he's a top 2, 3, whatever you put, top 5 quarterback in the league. And, now it's Pete Carroll's an old school coach. Like, he always relied on the run game. They've always had a solid run game, and Russell Wilson's part of that run game. But this guy has the strongest arm, not one of the strongest arms in football, and he's dangerous in his legs and improvise and all that. So he said he's going to let him air it out. We'll see. They got Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf had a great year as a rookie, as a receiver. So now they've always had good teams. Because they always had a great, solid defense, always. And they had Russell Wilson. They had a running game. They had Russell Wilson. Now Russell Wilson actually has the weapons. You got to let him air it out, man. You got to let him just let it fly like a lot of these other quarterbacks have that free reign to do. So we got to let him just go out there and make plays, and that's what he does. So that's another one. I think Seattle, to me, they're one of the top teams that can actually come out of the NFC.
Yeah, and they're going to have to knock off the Niners, but
they do.
They have the talent. They have the talent to compete. Yeah. So we'll see. But I'm looking forward to a great season. Like I said, you point out there's no preseason here. So it's really whoever gets in that groove the fastest is probably going to have the best chance, when you can get into that to playing football well. The first week it's probably going to be super duper sloppy. I'm expecting it to be super sloppy.
Preseason first week. It's going to be like a preseason first week. Yeah.
Exactly. So I expect it to be super sloppy, but by week 3, I expect, most teams to be firing all cylinders. And you'll start to see teams separate themselves, which is why we're not going to make any predictions for who's winning this year. So
right. Yeah, it's gotta keep that right until the middle of the season. Then playoffs, they're like, okay, now we know who can be the Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, contenders and pretenders, right? So we'll figure them out as about week 3 or week 4. Like I said, I think you'll start seeing people shape out, and you'll have some idea who's going to be a pretender, who's going to be a contender. So we'll be coming back to this in about 3 weeks.
Yes, we will.
All right. So before we end, is there anything you want to share with us? Your show? What's going on with you this week?
Yeah, the show going to be doing this week going to be doing an NFL preview type show, kind of like what we're doing now. We're going to just talk about some big storylines. That'll be airing on Saturday. Going to have some guests, just locking them in right as we speak. Last week, just talked about the NBA playoffs. We talked about the bubble. The playoffs have been tremendous and been crazy good. They've been great. So we talked a little bit about that last week. So you can check all that out on bs3radio.com, Spreaker.com, BS3 Radio. Check it out. The Real Deal with Courtney Harden. Follow on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all podcast avenues, man. Spotify, Google Play, everywhere you get iTunes, wherever you get podcasts, just check it out. bs3radio.com.
All right, for sure, bro. We appreciate that, man. And it's always a great time talking sports with you, man.
Yep.
And And, thank you guys for listening. We'll be back with our regular host, hopefully next week.
Yeah.
We miss you again, Trey. We be all
Yes,
having
sir.
great conversations with EA here, man. We have good ones when here too. But we have these great conversations. So hopefully next week we back on our hoop thing since it is the playoffs. And we have a couple good series going on right now. I mean, Greek is almost, he might end up, not being in the playoffs next week when we come back.
Yeah, right.
He might be done. So we'll have a lot to talk about next week. So until then, we thank you all for tuning in, and y'all have enjoy the rest of your Labor Day.
All right, y'all. Peace.